How many books would a Booker judge judge if a Booker judge could judge books? I can't believe I did that in one take. Hi, I'm Ben. Welcome back to my channel where today I'm just doing Booker Prize tongue twisters. Well, not really, but that one was pretty relevant because I've been thinking about the number of books in the running for this year's Booker Prize. We know that 12 or 13 books will make up the Booker dozen announced as the longlist on Tuesday. But there are many, many more books read by the judges and loads more than that which are eligible. And I've been thinking about those numbers because of something I saw on the Booker Prize's Instagram account recently. In the run-up to the longlist announcement, they've been promoting interviews that they've done with judges that they have posted on their website. I've only read a couple of these interviews, but they are a really insightful dive into the minds of the judges, what they're looking for, and their experience so far of being on the judging panel. But what most caught my eye was the snippet they posted on Instagram when promoting James Shapiro's interview. He said, "Reading over 150 works of fiction has increased my appreciation for how hard it is to write a good novel, let alone a great one." Now, for one thing, this kind of made me chuckle because, intentionally or not, it kind of makes it sound like he's having a terrible time with the books he's read. The more interesting thing to me is that he mentioned reading over 150 books, and that got me thinking, that's a lot of books, but just how many is it? Well, if we are to look at all the predictions lists across BookTube and Bookstagram, and there have been a lot of them, there is a significant amount of overlap between them this year. And there's a user on Goodreads called Dylan who has been tracking all of the predicted books. And while I'm not certain if this is a complete list, I counted the books that he posted that he's tracked at least one person mentioning in a prediction. And that adds up to about 75 books, which probably isn't even half of what the judges have actually read. A great many of the books that people have been tipping for a nomination have come from a list of eligible books that users on Goodreads have compiled. And I can see why this is really helpful, right? Because you don't want to mention a bunch of books as your predictions which aren't eligible. And so it's good to check that list, see if they're on it. But on the other hand, that single list of books somewhat contributes to our groupthink a bit and why there are so many titles that have appeared on many, many lists. At the time I am filming this video, that list contains 158 eligible books. A bunch of these probably haven't even been submitted, either because of submission limits by publishers or the publisher being unable to meet the marketing requirements of entry. There's rules like you needing to provide 1,000 hard copies of books to bookshops. So there are likely lots of books that the judges have read that aren't even on that Goodreads list, which to me is kind of fantastic because it leaves the door wide open to some surprise titles appearing on the long list. Because I can't let things rest, I've been wondering what those surprises might be. And I've done a bit of digging, by which I mean looking in bookshops. And I've found some eligible titles that I haven't seen mentioned anywhere on predictions lists. And as I'm filming this, I don't see them on the Goodreads list either. If I'm wrong about this and you've seen these books predicted, then my apologies, but it's still fun to speculate about some lesser known novels. These are, of course, not my predictions, just some possibilities. And I've already made my predictions video and I've made an Instagram post to go along with that. So I'll link both of those in the description if you want to check those out afterwards. But let's dive in to the surprises. The first book is Service by Sarah Gilmartin. Gilmartin is an Irish author. This is her second novel and it's about a famous chef facing accusations of sexual assault. It's told from three different perspectives: a waitress at the restaurant, the chef and the chef's wife. And all of these stories are competing to tell a version of the truth. It reminds me a little bit of another book that's in the running this year that's doing a similar thing, which is Chrysalis by Anna Metcalf, though I think this sounds a little bit more grounded, where that goes into some quite strange and surreal places. I am really, really digging fiction that plays with truth and who gets to tell which stories, and I love the idea of getting a peek behind the curtain at a restaurant. Although I am sure, or at least I hope, that there isn't the same darkness lurking in every kitchen. This one interested me regardless, and I picked it up when I went on my trip to Ireland not that long ago, so I'm keen to read this either way. Next is The Great Reclamation by Rachel Heng. This is another second novel. Heng has previously written a book called The Suicide Club, which I remember seeing on shelves, but I haven't heard too much about. I think that was a contemporary novel, but The Great Reclamation is a historical fiction piece. This is a coming-of-age story about a boy from a fishing village called Arboon, and it's a love story about him and a girl he meets at school. But this coming-of-age and love story combo is used to tell a much bigger, sweeping story of Singapore's history, what it experienced at the hands of Britain and Japan, and how it became the modern city-state we know it as today. This year is lousy with sweeping historical fiction novels, so I'm not sure about this one's chances. I feel like we could have a list of just historical novels if we wanted to, but maybe this is one that's going to bubble up to the top of the list and surprise us. The third book I want to bring to your attention is Sandersons Isle by James Clarke. Clarke is a British writer, and this is his third novel. This one is set in 1960s London, and we follow a man who is searching for his estranged father. He doesn't find him, but he does instead find a father figure, some oddball, druggy TV presenter called Joseph Sanderson. This book's been described as literary noir with lots of twists and turns, super imaginative and very evocative of the time and vibes of the 1960s. Plus, it's got a lovely cover. It reminds me a little bit of another contender with a rotated picture on the front, which is Falling Animals by Sheila Armstrong, except this one is maybe a little bit more trippy, which I think is quite reflective of the content of the book. Sounds pretty cool. Finally, we've got Other Names, Other Places by Ola Mustafa. This is from a pretty small indie press, and you know I love to support an indie press. This is a debut novel about a young woman called Nessie who's grown up in London with Tunisian parents. And she feels caught between two identities. She doesn't feel white enough for London, and she doesn't feel African enough to fit in with her family. There's also a bit of mystery in the mix, with some woman who comes into her family's life but then abruptly disappears after some sort of betrayal. One of the strands of this novel is Nessie as an adult looking back at that time in her life and trying to figure out what happened between her parents and this woman. It sounds like a really interesting, topical novel, and I wonder if we could see it on the list. So that's it, short and sweet today. I'd be really interested to know if you've read any of these books that I've mentioned, or if there are any books that you've not seen get a peep in any of the predictions videos that you think has a shot of being on the long list. Let me know in the comments. It's really not long now until we get that long list, and so I'll be back next week with a reaction to it. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, really helps me out. And if this is the first time you've landed on this channel and you're not subscribed, now is a great time to hit that subscribe button. But until next time, toodles.